Hello and welcome to the MediaCat podcast. I'm James Swift, editor of MediaCat UK. Today we're talking about social media with Beth Thomas and Michael Cochrane. Beth was previously social media manager for brands including Birchbox and Deliveroo, before joining TikTok as a campaign operations manager. And Michael was head of social media at everyone's favourite airline, Ryanair. Earlier this year, Beth and Michael launched a new consultancy called Slice, which helps brands figure out how to show up on social. Their new venture comes at an interesting time for the channel. On the one hand, the economics of social media look strong. Walk Media predicts that in 2026, social platforms will rake in $300 billion of advertising, which would be a quarter of the predicted global ad spend. And in the second quarter of this year, Meta alone made $46.4 billion from advertising, which was a 20% year-on-year increase, and 11% of that came from serving more ads, as opposed to just raising prices. But at the same time, it feels like people are becoming increasingly disenchanted with social media. In July, the BBC reported a poll that found a third of social media users were posting less than they were a year before. And as the platforms converge around short-form video, social seems, in some respects at least, to becoming more like just another broadcast channel. Which raises the question of whether brands really need to think about their social presence and personality in the same way that at least some of them used to. And on that note, Beth, Michael, thanks for joining me.
Hello,
thanks for having us.
God, you sound great, Beth.
Oh, thank you. It's my phone voice.
So let's just jump right in. Why did you launch another social agency? I mean, wouldn't it make more sense at this point to start an AI one?
I think that for us, our background, we've done, I think, together probably almost 30 years just working in social, and are quite new to the AI world. So everything that we do at Slice encompasses some AI, but we're not. I feel like we're not AI experts. So
No.
social made more sense to us.
Fair enough.
Completely. So yeah, there are a lot of good people out there when it comes to teaching about the fundamentals of AI from each step in the journey of marketing, but would be wrong to call ourselves an AI agency purely because AI will bake into each step of what we do, whether it's our own processes or teaching how people can use it within developing insights, producing content, automating measurement and reporting systems. That's the value of what's going on out there, and it would be ill of us to set something up like that where our job is to make the platforms better, and AI, whilst it's going to be helpful, may or may not make social as a space and place better.
Thank you. So what makes Slice different exactly? Or not, if not different, particularly worthy of a brand's budget?
Oh, worthy. I think we created Slice because we saw this gap of what most people are doing on social versus what we believe people should be doing on social. And the main thing that we've seen is that brands have this lack of strategy. So most brands are thinking of social, their social teams are creating content that isn't really doing anything for the business. It's nice to have, maybe it's getting loads of views, maybe it's really funny, or maybe it's, it's doing... Sorry, I feel like I went on a little side then.
Keep going.
Yeah, no. So maybe it's doing something, but not what we want it to do. And I think lots of brands aren't thinking about what is that one thing that we can use social for that actually can help the business, rather than just creating content for the sake of creating content.
Right.
And that's what we do differently, I think, to just about everyone else that we've met that have social agencies. Is we don't do any of the execution. We're not there to go out and film content and make content for you. We're there to find a strategy that works, that will help move the business, and also to upskill the internal teams in-house as well. So not only do we create a strategy that can do something, we are also making sure the team in place, or new people potentially that we think should come in to help that team be, 5 out of 5 team, that they then have all the skills, understand social to the same level as us, really, have all of our knowledge, in these workshops that we deliver, so that they can then take that and run, and we can leave. Like, we're not there to stay.
Yeah, because like I had the privilege of having a lot of conversations with a lot of, say, chief marketing officers, brand directors, the decision makers in the world of marketing for a lot of brands once I left the world of Ryanair, and the same two problems came. They didn't know what social was doing for the brand, to Beth's point, and they didn't know how to operate it. And like, that's essentially what we have developed, because I guess we're coming as this impartial voice in the room. We are not there with an agenda to give you or prescribe to you a certain way of doing and delivering on these platforms, that others will, because that's their entire business model. We come in, to Beth's point, and find out the why, and then prescribe and educate and coach the right way to execute on it. And sometimes that might mean not make any content at all. It might mean focusing on creators, or focusing on paid media, or a better blend of the three, which they might not be doing. And it's such a chaotic space out there right now, because it's a race to the bottom for so many agencies, because so many agencies now exist. You wake up in the morning and there's a new agency in town, because some amazing talent has left an agency or a brand to set it up. If I'm looking in the mirror, here's yours truly. So we don't want to go into that red ocean of a land grab and a race to the bottom, and it's he who charges the least wins, and then what you prescribe is always going to be biased. So it means that when we go into rooms, you can be assured that we will give you the best prescription on what's right for your brand, and then based on your time and resource, find the best blend of how to use the platforms effectively now, hopefully deliver some impact and signals that you can go back into the business and go, hey, you know social is a thing, you know it's a valuable, but we haven't done a very good job beyond vanity metrics proving it. This is how we can prove it. Now we've delivered something maybe for the business or brand that might open the eyes of a C-suite, and then hopefully they might invest more.
So, I mean, you've kind of touched on this just now with your experience at Ryanair, but what makes you two uniquely qualified to offer this service?
It's a great question.
I think we say all the time. We also work, there's another guy that works with us, Chris Barton, and he's worked agency side for 10 years before he came to join us. So I think between us, we've worked, like the work Michael did at Ryanair. I think if anybody works in social, like everybody knows that work. Then Chris having that agency side, I've worked brand side. I also worked at TikTok for a few years. I'm also a content creator. So like between us, we've worked with so many brands, have won on social multiple times, have then been behind the scenes, like platform side, seen it as content creators, seen it agency side. And I think that's what makes us quite unique in the space, in that lots of people, we've been doing it kind of since the start, really.
Yeah, and I think we come with we live and breathe that impartiality, and we're not afraid to ask questions, be a little bit more curious. And again, not having that agenda or that bias gives us the freedom to do that. And that's what people are looking for from us too. They're not looking for us to pander to them because they want to win a budget or they want to say yes to every project. We're in there to go, hey, we think this is wrong and this is how you can fix it. And sometimes that's an uncomfortable experience for the people on the other receiving end, but we've been hired to do that. And I think my time at Ryanair and a few other places has built my capability and emotional intelligence to do that more. And it's what I saw in Beth too when we started to talk, first of all, working together originally, but then the future of what we want to do. And there's a bit of cuteness to us in how we sell our work, but also we're not afraid to speak our minds. And I think that's what's really good about and what sets us apart too. And, you know, it was a really interesting one, because before this whole notoriety of Ryanair, I was the one who was following Beth Thomas, looking for the inspiration in the industry. There was a few handful of people who were putting themselves out there, asking the right questions. Her time at Deliveroo, even before she went to TikTok, it was all built upon like trying to do this better and explain it better and figure it out better. And that curiosity really was infectious for me. and it really drew me towards kind of Beth being that type of, partner in crime to do this, and having, I guess, all of those parts beyond experience. Our emotional intelligence allows us to give exactly what these decision makers are looking for.
Out of curiosity, do you both still enjoy sort of creating and performing on social in a personal capacity, or are you a bit over it now?
I still love it. I still love making content.
See, our content creation formats are very different, aren't they? Like, I personally hate being on camera, but that's just me. Whether it's imposter syndrome, confidence, or self-confidence being on camera. In podcast environments, fine, because I can just let go and ramble. But in a structured, edited piece, it scares the shit out of me. Whereas Beth on camera is natural, and your creator accounts have been doing like such good work over the years. I'm very much different. I love meme content. I love one-liners. I think I naturally have this quick wit that allows me to react to things quite fast. And it's probably one of the areas that I, from an execution point of view, did so well in the world of Ryanair when it came to some of the tactics we delivered on the strategy. That world I love. Like the one-liners, the connecting of dots, spotting of patterns, the meme culture of the platforms is where I love to express myself. Whereas you're a little bit different.
Yeah. I create content with a friend, and it's like short form content. So I've always been a content creator, I guess. That's how I started working in social. I used to make YouTube videos like back in 2012 or 13 or something. And then I started posting on Instagram, and then, TikTok came and created this account there. We both also sort of post on LinkedIn, and you kind of create, like, trying to do that there under that guise, I guess, of people would see it as like a creator on LinkedIn sort of. So I think whatever the platform is, I feel like I've dipped my toe, tried them all, and I still love creating content.
Yeah, and same. And like, I would love to be better on video. I would love to do video more, but I just get inside my own head so much that I just never deliver on it. So then I default to memes, and it's just my comfort blanket.
Do you ever try it? Do you film yourself?
Yes, a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Should see his camera
My
roll.
camera roll is quite bad because I've tried it a few times, and then it's just like I'll overthink it rather than just putting it out there.
Yeah.
I'm a bit hypocritical at times when it comes to pushing people to be braver on the platforms when I can't even be braver myself.
I'm the same. If I'm not asking someone questions, I'm useless. So it's been 2.5 years since Cory Doctorow coined the term enshittification to talk about how platforms were basically selling out their users and advertising partners to make money and making social a worse place. Has social media become irreparably worse over the past few years, do you think?
I mean, it's changed so much, hasn't it? I think TikTok really was the big moving point in how people started using social platforms differently because of the way TikTok was built. You didn't have to follow accounts. You didn't even need to engage with accounts. Just watch a video, and then all you get is that content. And I think obviously the platforms want to make money. And I think, it's probably not, that when you scroll yourself, there's so many ads that aren't relevant to me that I see when I'm scrolling in my feeds. And I think, that is probably worse than it was a few years ago. But I guess it just means it's different. Like the challenge is different now. And I can't see people leaving any. I mean, I'm never gonna.
No, like, is it shit? Yes. Has the shitness changed? Incredibly. But that doesn't mean social isn't that fun, entertaining space and place that people can still go to. That still exists.
Yeah.
But like those algorithm changes and what's happening in the world has changed the behavior on the platforms. So again, how you control what you see has changed based on what Beth said with the algorithms. But also, we're living in a lot more fragile ground now. That there's less centered people who could take a joke or take entertainment, or what we're being exposed to has dramatically changed, and how the platforms are being utilized then has made it quite a darker place. That's right. TikTok became this comfort blanket where we're all tired of the fake filtered nature of social, and like, it wasn't just people, it was brands were just adding to that sea of sameness shit that just made it mundane, boring and fake. And TikTok came and it was just brilliantly honest, rough, people trying to express themselves or process what was going on in their lives or in the world. And it became, I guess, a little bit more social, or whatever that definition is, again. But now, again, what happens, and it's there's a cycle to it, that once brands become or see or exposed to other brands delivering in certain ways, we tend to pile on and piggyback and saturate the platforms, probably in the wrong way again, which is not helpful for the end user or helpful for the brands. I think the ones winning right now are the platforms and nobody else. I think users are finding it harder to find the content that they like. The algorithms are smart, but they're still shoving a lot of content down people's feeds that they don't necessarily want to see or experience. And brands chasing things like trends aren't helping either, because they're losing their identity, they're losing the value, and they're just adding to this sea of sameness, which we would try to get away from 5-6 years ago, but just done in a different way. So yeah, it's shit, but I don't want to say it's not this fun space. You can control that. You can make better decisions on what you see and train your feeds to be better. Like, I'd give you an example. In the last 48 hours, my TikTok feed has become nothing but Muhammad Ali clips from when he used to give these lovely poetic speeches and, interviews with the media. Absolutely brilliant. And now I've absolutely binged on it. And I'm being fed every 20, 30 videos with this hype video or this humorous analogy by Muhammad Ali compared to what I've been seeing over the last 3 months. And that's the world of social that can be, again, but we have a lot of work to do as brands and the platforms to tidy that up.
I mean, it's interesting now how so much of the content on social is lifted from mainstream media. But I don't know, the analogy that always comes to my mind is, I kind of feel like there's a certain naivety that's been lost with social media that isn't going to come back. But it feels like a late season of Big Brother. Like, everyone's too aware of the stakes and what's going on, and you'll never get that innocence back again and that honesty.
But I feel like that happens. I feel like that happened with YouTube, and then like TikTok came, and then people moved over there, and then it was new again. So there'll be new platforms, and we'll be in these peaks and troughs.
I wish I had your optimism.
On a cycle.
So what are some of the interesting trends that illustrate how social works at the moment?
I think it's we sort of touched on some of it earlier, in that we've seen, because you don't need to engage with content to be shown more of that content, and because how people would think of Instagram back in the day is very different now to how social feeds work and what they feed you, that you actually don't need to publicly engage with things anymore for you to be shown that content, whereas before you had to follow them and you had to like a video or comment or whatever. So I think that we're now in I can't remember who coined it. Was it Eugene? Like, this engagement recession.
Yeah.
And it's like people talk about like the rise of the lurkers, as in we're all still there, we just might not be engaging. And I think that's why it's something we talk about as well, is how it's important to not just look at engagement metrics anymore. Whereas 5 years ago, I feel like if you asked anyone in social, like, what are you tracking? It was like engagement rate is number one. Whereas we know people just don't engage as much anymore, but people are still there and they are watching content. So I think thinking about it slightly differently, and instead of, if you're a brand or someone being like, oh, our engagement's really low, but maybe something you could look at is your watch time. Like, are people actually sticking around to watch this piece of content and listen to what you're saying? And if they are, like, that could be a measurement of success. So I think, that not so much like I don't know what you meant trend, if you meant like, do I like a TikTok trend at the moment? Or this is, I guess, more of a wider behavior change trend. Can I call
like
it a trend?
It was deliberately vague.
Okay, great.
I'll let you just fill in the blanks.
Yeah, if we're going vague, like, again, Instagram have built out that insight now where you can look at watch time better on Reels to see where they actually stop and drop off. So
TikTok have had that for years.
Yeah, and they've had it for years, and YouTube have had it when it came to completion rates and view rates as well. First of all, trend, I actually balk at the word. Because it's been so bastardized in so many ways of what's hot and what's new in the world of marketing and social, but also what a trend is, like in culture versus the platforms, is very, very different. But if we're to hone in on a few other things that are happening in the platforms, is is how the feeds are changing. So obviously we know that the feeds have changed since TikTok came to town, and they're built on this language called discovery, where touch on it, where your content will be pushed to people based on what they watch, not how they engage with how they watch. And it's very well trained to give you lots of content and a mix of other stuff that you might like or be interested in. So you don't need high followers to win on these platforms anymore. You just need to have really good content. And if the content works, it will be pushed. But the other layer of discovery that's been added of recent is, again, the world of what's called social search. And it means that there's kind of two ways to use the platforms from an, let's call it, organic point of view. Mm-hmm. And again, language, I'm a bit uncomfortable, but I also try and call things different to be a show off as well. So let's not do that for the purpose of this. But in the world of organic, you now have the feeds now, which is the discovery feed, where you are unprompted with content that they think you will like and engage with. Search, on the other hand, is a bit different because that's more prompted. It's you physically now using the platforms to search for information, topics, or forms of content that might be of interest to you for a variety of reasons, education, tips, things like that, or searching for recommendations. And the platforms are starting to build now the infrastructure to cater to that. If you look at TikTok, they've got a tool called Creator Search Insights, which is now giving you the keywords and the content gaps based on what people are physically searching for in the search bar. And actually there is a need to fill that gap with content. But then similar to what's happening when you look at Google Trends and the keywords and the search topics, that's now being used as a tool to now make content for people to look for and discover. So that's the prompted, physically inputting the information in. And there's a need and desire to optimize your content and put information there. Now, the scary part is the second people see something shiny and new, they all go, oh, every piece of content has to be optimized. That's not quite, because what we're now seeing is these two types of content may serve different objectives. And the unprompted is very brand building. It's in the feed, it's quick. And that's even quite, fragmented in the approaches you could use for that, whether it's trends, original content and things like that, or collaborations or brand partnerships. It's endless. The search side, though, is different now as well, because that's going to be built upon the actual keywords. So how you optimize it, how you create it, the pacing, the information that's in it's probably going to be a little bit different. The story arcs are going to be different. The keywords are going to be different. You're still going to need the basics of a good hook to bring people in, grab their attention, and then get them to stick around. But the roles of them change. One is fast and it has a shorter shelf life. So the end-to-end success of the content might have a window of 72 to whatever hours, maybe an extend to 7 days. Where search content has a much longer shelf life now, because that could, again, historically rank, I think, is it 9 to 12 months. It probably will expand over time, but it means that both content on surface level looks the same when you make it and publish it, but behind it all, the optimization and what you need from it is different. And then the last piece of it is the results are going to be slower and faster in their success as well. So now you can start to make decisions on how to optimize, create, and build the content in the right ways for both purposes. But also you have to have an expectation on this content in fast or prompted or unprompted is going to, have a faster success rate of 0 to X views. Whereas the search is going to be 0 to X views at a much slower rate. And again, in the tools, you can see this now. You can see the views and where they're coming from the feed, from search and all these touch points, meaning that they're really starting to get more out of the platforms when it comes to how to build brands. And that's really exciting. So beyond creators, beyond paid, you now have almost like this rebirth of organic or a role or a purpose for organic social now that has two very different ways, two very different offerings. The ideal and the dream is to probably do both. But not all brands may need to do both. And that goes back to what we have set up and how we approach things in good strategy. Because if you have a certain strategic approach and based on all your other platforms or how you use creators and paid and your impressions and your reach is really, really high and reach is not your problem, you might invest more in search rather than the fast feed, because that's the gap and that's the problem we think social organically can solve. So now you start to narrow down, double down on that and perfect that. So now everything working together probably shows a better value of the platforms.
Mm. There's probably a Burnett and Field style paper in there somewhere.
There is. Funny enough, I'm developing something on it called The Fast and Slow It.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, again, I was really annoyed by the System 1 guys because they put out a report for Cannes around the long and short form of it. Mm-hmm. Now, that's more predominantly built on how to build brands on social, which is important, but they focus on the elements that are needed in the content to drive brand lift, brand recall, and improve the performance from a brand building side of things. For me, it's almost like this. Now, again, it's different from Binnett and Field, where one is about brand building and tactical, but there's elements in it which are true. They're two different systems and offer two different values to building the brand. That is really interesting. Do we have a full understanding of the world of search yet? No, but we, again, doing what we do, we're curious enough to go figure that out. And I'll kind of build on this just a little bit and then I'll stop waffling. But like even the things on search, the basics people are talking about right now is keyword optimization. That's the only thing that's coming. You need to optimize your content so when people search for you appear. That's true. But there are other ways similar to organic search on Google that are starting to be thought about and developed. And there's an agency called Deviation, which are a social search first agency that are really curious about this. And even we've had conversations just to learn from them about it. And examples being like when you used to build organic social or organic content in search, you used to build content that you could outreach to the media. And by outreaching to the media, the aim for you was they were to take some of that content and use it in their articles and then do a backlink to get healthy organic reach to start indexing higher on Google. They're playing and looking and exploring, saying that could be a thing of the future within the world of search on social as well, where if you create content or package it in a way that is interesting, be it a survey or an interesting perspective or clever campaign idea that's activated and distributed to the media, and then it's housed within their video content and they tag your account. That's almost like the link building of the old Google search. And it goes a level more if you get clever enough then to package the content, how you understand how all these publications make their content. Let's give you an example. Daily Mail normally do these talk and news broadcast bulletins where they have the talking head with the green screen and it cuts with all the content. If you study their formats cleverly enough and then you understand that, well, the asset you syndicate to the media then is designed in a way that that person can easily slot in onto the green screen, your content, knowing exactly where they stand in their position, their format and style. You literally make it easy for them to use, to add you, to tag you as the source, and you start to build and position yourself to rank more on search and social too. So it's a crazy space and it's an exciting space, and it brings to life, I think, a better opportunity for organic to add more value.
Just out of curiosity, do the platforms give any sort of breakdown in terms of time spent on the platforms between those two activities? I assume search is still a minority activity.
I haven't seen any data yet, but they do give the search terms and search volume and the gaps in what the information is looking for, but they don't compare the time between both.
Yeah, they did release some stats a few months ago as well that said 20. I think it was like 24% of people go to the search bar within the first 15 or 30 seconds of being on the app. So like a quarter of people are now going to TikTok with some sort of intent of what they are looking for, whether that's a review or it's a TV show they're watching or whatever that is that they want to find more info out about, rather than just going to scroll.
It's not the exact stat I was looking for, but that's a good second option. I think. Thank you.
We haven't got the other one.
I think it'll come. It's still too early because Instagram have only made their content allowed to be indexed on Google search. So they're about 12 to 16 months behind TikTok. So TikTok's search infrastructure is built on Creator Search Insights. So the back end and the infrastructure and some of the data is there from keywords, but they're constantly reiterating and making this better. So you're going to see things like PPC ads be in search. You're going to see how they rank and the positioning of the information. There's probably going to be different formats that are going to be elevated in that search space as well. So it's going to change. It's just too early. And I think like most platforms, they'll focus on building before measuring.
Okay. Oh, and just before I forget, a little while ago you mentioned someone called Eugene who coined the engagement recession. Sorry, who's that for people who don't know?
Sorry. The man, the myth, the legend, Eugene Healy.
Eugene Healy, yes.
He's a brand strategist.
Yeah, and he's really popular in the world of social brand content. He has a way with words that we stand quite a lot.
Yeah, big fans.
he's inside our heads, but can articulate things so much better than we can sometimes.
Yeah, we actually got to spend like a car journey together that was like 2 hours, and I feel like we're not great, I reckon, at like articulating, like you said, into like something really small, like a one-liner. And I remember I just said so much, and he was like, "Oh, do you mean blah 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 blah?" And I was like, "Wow." Yeah, he's a lecturer, and that's what he did before as well. So he just has a way with making very complex topics very simple and easy to understand, and does that so well on social. So if anyone's not following him, I can't remember his at
Eugene Brand Strategy.
There we go. Plug.
Thank you. I mean, it's quite telling. I mean, maybe it's not telling. I don't know. But we've talked about social so far as a broadcast platform. I mean, was it right when 2 years ago everyone started saying, social media is no longer, inverted commas, social?
It's hard to talk about the name without talking bullshit, I think. I think it should never have been called social media in the first place. I think it was just like in this room, Zuckerberg and the guys were trying to figure out, well, what do we call this? And it was coined this network.
Only Eugene had been there.
Yeah, I imagine that would have been really helpful. But I think actually there is footage, and I can't remember the content. It goes back to when that was decided. The name, the social network. But if you look at most of the platforms, they are entertainment platforms more than anything. And you see it because of the negativity around social, a lot of the new platforms and existing platforms rebranding, like TikTok and Snapchat would never call themselves social networks. They call themselves entertainment platforms.
Yeah.
So I think the definition was wrong from the get-go. But now what you see is we see people and marketeers forcing themselves to create language, create narrative that doesn't make sense. Like, is, for example, social a place where community can be built and exist? Perhaps, potentially. How people explain it and define it is, I think, forceful and doesn't make sense in many cases when you really start to ask questions. But what we're all guilty of in the industry is one or two influential people up top will call something, say something, and then everybody in the pyramid underneath starts to say the same thing, and it gets diluted when they really aren't asking the right questions of what the fuck does any of this mean? And if you ask that in most cases, people find it hard to answer. It just feels like, oh, well, I heard that person said it, so that must be what it means. Where no, they were just put on the spot and called it something, and now we've all copied.
So what does all this mean for brands on social and how they behave or how they should behave? It's a broad one, isn't it?
It's a great one.
What are those vague ones?
Yeah, you're like, take it wherever you want to go. What do I think it means for brands? I think that you just said about them being broadcast channels. I think it's been a long time since anyone who's broadcasting a specific message that isn't helpful or educational or entertaining for anyone, and so many brands still do push just whatever they're talking about this week, whatever campaign they've got, they're just putting that out on social. And I think the more the platforms change and the more they're entertainment platforms, the more creators are always miles ahead. And we've always talked about this, haven't we, from when you were at Ryanair and when I was at Birchbox. I was always looking at creators because at the end of the day, I always used to say, if a creator's content is rubbish and they fall off a cliff, they don't get paid anymore. Whereas people who work in social media teams, often kind of whether the content is doing anything or not, they're still there. So I think looking and seeing how creators behave has always been so important. But I think that brands having to now now are at a place, and I think that's why we're at the right time for Slice, because people above in businesses are going to be asking social teams, what actually is this team doing? Because I think we've gone and we've literally rode that part of it where you're in a one-person team, then you finally get budget, then you finally the business understands and you have a team and things grow. And I think that's where we are. There's still lots of one-person teams, but that we're at that tide now where I think the people above are going to start being we've given you all this money, we've given you this team, what are you doing for the business? And I think most people cannot answer that question, and I think that's such a scary place for social media people, like a social media manager, a head of social, whatever your role is. I think that's a super scary place for them to be. So I think this, having a bit of a reset to what social is for the business, it's now is the time for everyone to really look at the work that everybody's putting out and thinking actually what is that, is that doing anything for any part of this business? Are we solving a problem? Are we reaching even the right people? So often businesses talk about, when they do their personas of like who we want to talk to. And then they show you like the social reports and things, and you're reaching totally different people. And if that's a plan, then great. But often it's not. I think we saw that with some of the clients we worked with last year. So I think I've gone right off the question there. I can't even remember what it was.
I can't remember what it was either. Don't worry, carry
But
on.
you're still smiling.
See how it goes.
I think that was the end of that ramble.
Misleading.
The opportunity for brands is huge, because if you look at the behavior, TV still is an important element to most people, but people are spending less time on it. And what I mean by traditional TV, not the actual TV device or screen, but the TV and other forms of marketing. It's where people are spending most of their time. And when we use the catch-all term social media platforms, that could be any of 15, 20 different apps that exist. So we understand that it's a huge opportunity to brand build. But to Beth's point, I think we do need a reset. I think we've lost our way, because, and I'd be the first to admit it, 6-7 years ago, I rode away for the best part of 9-10 years, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. We decoupled ourselves from marketing teams because social was this shiny toy over here that was very special and different. Whereas I had this realization when I was in Paddy Power Betfair that we have not got a clue how to brand build in these platforms. There were some, and a lot, who were doing it well, and some who were figuring it out and still with what they were doing a good job. But for the vast majority who didn't have that bravery or autonomy that didn't exist in the existing brand strategy, were misguided and, did not know how to actually bring this to life. And that decoupling didn't help. So we're trying to, again, bring strategy back into things in order to make better decisions. And I think that's what's got lost. It's the decoupling and the lack of understanding of the timeless truths of marketing and how to actually brand build on the platforms. And you can see that in the output, because now a few big brands do certain behaviors or tactics on the platforms and everybody else copies, thinking that's strategy when it's really tactics, and not understanding the reasons why they're doing it. Or it just becomes this sea of same, as we mentioned earlier, that just makes things, flat and uninteresting, and brands lose all sort of identity. The biggest opportunity is for brands to brand build again on the platforms and use all of the fragmented capabilities that are there, and there are many, even with drops in engagement, even with this engagement recession we talked about, that there are other ways to win on these platforms. You just need to think better about it and then build something a bit more robust that can build a brand. And if not, you're pandering to the platforms. You're creating all of this content, yes, based on trends, and you're getting on 1 million views from time to time. But all you're doing is you're feeding the feeds of the people who are enjoying those trends. And more than likely, they're enjoying the trend and they're not remembering the brand. And if they're not remembering the brand, then what the fuck are we doing? We're not doing our job.
I mean, when you talk about the sea of sameness, I assume you're talking about the snarky pop culture expert tone that most brands on social seem to adopt.
Yeah, that and the Ryan Reynolds tone of voice on social. But it's also the mimicking of, a trend last year like demure, where Jules, very demure trend came. Within the space of 2 weeks, that went from peak to flat. So the existence of these moments are becoming shorter and shorter because so many brands are piling on. And then if you're scrolling your feed, you're seeing 30, 40, 50 interpretations of that trend in a single moment of binging, that 5 minutes of your day. Yeah, you're laughing in that moment. It's low barrier entertainment, low barrier engagement. You get a little reward. You give the content creator a reward. They're enjoying the trend in the moment. But then you have to ask yourself a question. If you went out and, researched or surveyed 100 people who in that space or that timeline watched that content, how many brands could they name that delivered an interpretation of the Jules and demure trend? I'd struggle to see what brands they would name. They'd probably name brands for the sake of it, but they probably wouldn't be able to name the brand or the message they were trying to convey. So that's a challenge, because not only are you fighting for attention, but you're trying to actually then get people to remember you. And everyone is just doing the same thing. And when they don't have these assets, be it brand assets or other things like story arcs, episodic content, something that is identifiable with the brand or built over time, it's just the same looking people lip syncing and dancing or acting that are social media managers who probably aren't getting paid for being the faces of the brand, doing the same interpretations. It becomes too repetitive and nobody stands out.
I'm curious, have you seen how systems like Advantage Plus on Meta or any idea about what the promised future of social, where you give us your credit card and we'll do the rest, what that is going to mean for social? Will brands just skip trying to develop a social personality and entrust everything to the algorithms?
I don't know is the answer.
It's very honest.
I understand the rationale behind it, but for the platforms, it's to own the creation of content, which means they make more money. All it is a play for the platform to make more money. Will it have true creativity and originality? Time will tell. AI is very intuitive, very smart, with enough intel, but it's only going to be creating ideas based on the past, not future ideas. And that's where it's going to have its limitation. It'll be perfect for pay for play, but from an organic creative point of view, unlikely. So those that will still have that uniqueness or identity will still probably flourish. My concern is if AI and if education of professionals in our industry aren't focused on more, and both in parallel, people are going to lean to that and create more slop on the platforms. Then that's going to lower engagement. The engagement recession is going to continue, and people are going to go to other spaces and places to spend time with people or be entertained.
So are there any brands that you feel are getting it right at the moment? And if so, what are they doing that's right?
You've got your favourites.
Yeah,
You've got your breast milk.
I got my breast milk brand. So Frida, I think for me is a really interesting brand that, even though I'm not the direct customer, I'm just really intrigued by what they've been doing. So they're a postpartum and mother care brand based in the US but expanding globally. But what they've done, which is really brave of them, a bit like a lot of period products that are happening in the world, like Flow and a few others, they are normalizing what was stigma or uncomfortable things that happen post-pregnancy for mothers, and also the realities of breast care and breastfeeding of babies. And they've made it so unapologetically forward in their content that it's actually making it more comfortable for people to be exposed to it in the real world. Their activations are absolutely hilarious. Whilst they over dramatize situations like nappy tsunamis of babies, or the implications of breast pumping milk, right down to, they did an activation recently which I thought was genius, which is around the development of a breast milk ice cream to normalize breastfeeding for babies. So much so they drove this big milk tanker down Times Square and set up a pop-up breast milk shop. And obviously, what is the point of that? It is to entertain. It is to create tension, because it's still an uncomfortable subject, and it was creative enough to confuse people or provoke an emotion to, really, is that breast milk? Should we be even drinking it, eating it? What's going on here? And it made people curious. And once that grabbed people's attention, well, obviously the follow-up was, again, to normalize things around breastfeeding and the needs of mothers. So their one brand, I think, is doing fantastic work. Others that I love are probably more leaning towards the media landscape. The Washington Post, I've always been a huge fan of how they took what was traditional broadcast and made it digestible and sociable in its formats and storytelling, with the likes of David Jorgensen.
He's left now.
He's left now to set up his own media company, which again is another interesting thing that segues around social media managers and creators being the front.
Yeah.
Because they're building IP. Their IP has been used for salary, whereas you have other creators and talent that are happening and making content that are getting properly rewarded for it. You can see these frustrations between the likes of him and Macy from Morning Brew. You started to see them take a shift, and they started to actually tag their personal accounts on the content they were making for their publication, more than likely as a negotiation tactic to try and raise their IP, knowing that at some point they're going to jump ship and move on. And that was the trade-off potentially of not getting a cut or a percentage for using their face.
I think another brand that seems like they were probably further ahead of thinking about how they use the people in the office is Sheerluxe.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know the insides of their team, but they have people who work there, and all of their content is like what we'd call employee generated content, I guess, which is like in the office, asking people what they're wearing today, talking about fashion and beauty and London centric type content. And I imagine they've done it on purpose, but each of the people in the content all are quite like different in terms of their style, their personality, what they're into, and I would assume are a mirror of who some of their target audience are. And I think what they've also done is, and I don't know which happened first, but they became sort of influencers just via the SheerLuxe account. Like people would be like, oh, that's Beth from SheerLuxe. And they've done the same now, where in the caption, they're always tagging Beth's account. And now Beth is an influencer, and they have 200,000 followers each. And so I think there's, like you said, it's such an interesting time, because we know that I think the big change on why people who are in-house end up being on camera is because there was this huge switch, and it was like, shit, we need to all do video now.
Yep.
And then it was like, well, I'm not just going to take a video of the product. Someone needs to be in it. Oh, I'm going to be in it because I need to put this content out and there's no one else to do it. And so I think that's why there's so many members of staff in content. But I don't know how they've worked it out there and what's happening. But there's lots of people who are now the faces of brands. And it will be so interesting to see how that continues to develop, because we've had conversations with people on, should it go in your contract that like there's things there around
performance bonuses or IP.
Yeah, and people who are also doing that with creators and are then being in content rather than at brands. There's just like it's quite a messy middle part that I'm intrigued to see how that will play out. But yeah, if you're often not being paid anything extra, you're just being paid your salary, but now you're the face and people know you and you're the distinct asset, and then the brand don't just want you in social. The brand wants you to come to events because people know you. They want you to host panels. Oh, they're doing a community tennis match. You must be there, and you're going to host and you're going to film on camera with them. So I think, yeah, that will be so interesting to see where that plays out.
And it's happened over the last few years. The future proofing of the channels or platforms as well have changes. Lotus Cars about 2 years ago had this individual who was their creator, and he was on the face of everything. But all of a sudden he disappeared because he went to go work with Red Bull. And the second he went, it was just carnage in the comment sections over, we want the old admin back. What's happened? And their performance completely dipped. So these considerations around reward, future-proofing your platforms, variety in the characters that you have is really, really important. So it is a very murky transition. This is what we mean. This whole industry needs a reset, from the strategy to the operations to the execution. A couple of other notable ones, I think, which I like is again the anti-trend jumping brands that are really starting to try and build brands on social. And things like Candy Kittens, Roomies by Built, even Confused.com, they're creating these repeatable formats. And how do you counter everyone piling on trends and doing the same thing? Sometimes doing the opposite, or finding a format that's instantly recognizable, a familiar format, wins the battleground for attention. And they're creating these really clever series where they've got characters, satire of the brand or the industry, providing information, but the setup and structure is the same every time. You might be familiar with a guy who does the career ladder, and he has this jingle with it, but essentially Hope
you don't have to hold your ladder. Just it's time for the
career ladder.
There we go.
I was waiting for you to bring it in. But again, why is that good? Because they're building assets that are recognizable, they're improving recall, they're fighting that every time you're finding or scrolling for this piece of content, that it stops you in your tracks, because you know the format, you know the context, you know what to expect. And now they're building characters, they're building environments, they're building worlds, they're building series, almost like mini episodes of TV. There's so many out there that are doing this job. And if they find the angle, test and learn these formats in different ways, scale it and perfect it, they could be onto something that could do far greater work than jumping on a trend would do. Because, yeah, they might get 20, 30, 40,000 views or build up to be something really credible in time. But I would probably imagine, if you ever test it in time, and this is something we'll try and do, is that if you put up, again, a series of content and name a brand who's developed a series of content based on this context and tone, the chances of naming those brands are probably going to be much stronger. Doing what our job, building brands, driving consideration, being mentally available at the time the streets of marketing.
Makes sense. On the point of staff fronting brand, I can't help thinking back to, was it Howard from the Halifax? Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, who gives you
No.
extra?
From the TV advert.
Yeah, Howard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, he went off and became a bit of a celebrity as well. Maybe he
Yeah.
could start a consultancy advising
There we go.
people.
Another idea.
There we go.
So we're seeing more marketing practitioners talk about how social media is collapsing the funnel by smushing discovery. Sorry, is this not a bit of an old chestnut?
Oh no! I'm just laughing again because I hear it so much as well. I hear the one-liners, the LinkedIn influencers,
Yeah.
including ourselves, ranting and raving about things just to grab attention.
So I mean that kind of answers my question. To what extent do you think this smushing is happening, and is it a big deal?
I have a view on it. Will I go first?
Sure.
All right.
You could paper scissors rock for it.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Or like make noises because it's all. I don't think what you would call the funnel is dead of building brand awareness, driving consideration, converting people, maybe driving loyalty and retention. How we are exposed to those messages or signals across the customer journey has changed. It's become so much more fragmented that it's not as linear as it used to be in the past with TV, out of home and print, in store. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, now you buy something. I think there's just more message and it's more fragmented. I don't think the actual traditional steps in a funnel has changed. It yo-yos and moves quite a lot based on all the signals you get. And there's so many interactions you get from brands, people online all the time that you're just exposed to it more. And the job is being stickier across all of this exposure. So I don't think in summary it's changed in its steps, but the volume of touch points you're exposed to has.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's that you still have to be aware of something to be able to purchase it. And there's a decision to be made. So I wonder when people say that, if they are just thinking of it more in like the tactics of how that used to happen, rather than these three things that happens in everybody's brain before they purchase something anyway. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I mean, we'll sort of wind down a little bit now. I mean, objectively, as social media experts, what's the worst social media platform?
Ooh, what do you mean by worst?
What's the worst? Again, it's one of those vague ones. Just say what you want, Beth.
I feel like you have one that you don't love as much, but something, I don't know if it's the worst. I think each platform, there are like not even cult followers, but people have their preferences. There are people that stan X and that will only go on Instagram. I mean, my mum and Facebook. So, you know, to certain people and to certain demographics, they're probably the worst. For brands, you could see them differently. Content creators would see them differently, and there would be a worst for all of those things. I mean, my preferences have changed so much. I used to love using Twitter back in the day, and I don't even have X on my phone anymore. So for me, maybe I would say that, just because the content creators that I want to follow aren't really posting on there anymore. Lots of where I get my, oh God, this is awful to say, where I get my news from has moved to other places. And
saw it on TikTok.
Yeah, God. So for me, then potentially that would be personally my least favorite.
X.
Yeah.
Okay, that was very diplomatically put, Michael.
I think I have to timestamp probably worst, because what's changed over the last couple of months has changed what I feel are the worst and best platforms. And that's been based on some of the policy changes by said platforms, based on new administrations in certain governments across the world. Like Instagram and Facebook used to be a place I would rate highly, purely because of their moderation and safeguards in place when it came to hate, bullying, discrimination content on the platforms. And X to an extent would have been included too, but I think it's always been a cesspit. But the amount of positive people who were on the platforms have slowly started to reduce. But for me, if I was to say worse, it would be a toss between Meta as a whole and X, purely because of the changes in their policies and moderation based on what Mr. Trump has said. Last year, X would have been an absolute pitfall, and it still is for me, the hate, the I guess fake speech wrapped in hate clothing is probably after killing that platform. It does seem like it has a signal of survival, but they've got one of the biggest brand trust issues ever to go ahead. If they can solve that, it might have an ability to be a thing. Have I fully come off it yet? No, because there are still quite influential media people who are on it that I would still respect, and I would be a person who would like to see both sides of a story to make a better informed view. However, what you see underneath the commentary, say over the last 12 months, has been quite dire and awful. And when you have a platform owner like Mr. Musk, who added to that chaos in the last 6-7 months, he's died down a little now. He's pulled back from American politics and he's focused on going after, AI again and what he should have been doing originally. It certainly made it less hateful and horrible. But yeah, it'd be a toss between the two of those. And that might change again based on who owns the platform and what policies change too. Like, I love Instagram as a platform, but how they've changed their views on the world and how they manage and protect people, I don't think was a very good idea.
Yeah. I mean, those are both very well considered answers. I thought you'd just say LinkedIn and then leave it at that.
We love LinkedIn.
No.
Do you?
Oh my gosh. What? Do you hate LinkedIn? Is that your
I
worst?
hate it. It's the one I'm on the most, which is probably why I hate it.
Same.
But I feel like it never had a peak. It never had a great era.
It's
And
coming.
fun.
I feel like it's coming.
They screwed up their rollout of video.
Oh yeah, that was sad. I feel like there was a lot of potential. But in all of the press that anyone from LinkedIn does, they keep talking about how video is, everybody's engagement's coming from video, but then everybody on the platform who's a content creator is saying the opposite. So it's they're obviously trying to push that, but then they've moved back because they took it out of the...
They took it out and they need to rebuild it. So they created this video feed in the app where it was separate, which was great. So it became the same as Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and that was good. But what was filling it was a lot of US content, and it wasn't very rich in user behavior. So they again pushed and encouraged creators to do it. But whatever happened, they stepped back on that format and that feed, and they then just took half the housing of the video, shoved it into what is like your traditional post format, and now it's on the same traditional feed right now. Now the challenge with that is, like, it used to be great for caption and video because you had the caption up top, you had the video on the bottom. Structurally, it was easy to consume a full caption and watch a video. Now the caption is buried within the video, so you have to press and expand. So if you have a really good long form context to what the video is kind of delivering as well, it doesn't work. From a UX point of view, it's awful. So I'm hoping they're going back to rebuild it in a better way. I think video is still needed there, but how they need to structure the feed, I think they really need to look back at it. One thing I loved, which they got rid of fast, was stories. So again, you have Instagram stories, you have, again, similar formats. They brought in LinkedIn stories at one point. But to me, that was a great space and place because that could have cleaned half of the shite that is on LinkedIn, where people are sharing these random updates every day or giving thoughts on every bloody campaign that goes out there. The 1 million versions of the Jaguar campaign, the Sydney Sweeney, it's good genes, that is filling the feeds. Anything a moment happens. Aside from killing campaigns before they even have a chance to survive, it's just copy and paste dribble, or it's a wasteful use of the feed. Whereas stories would probably, if you encourage those people to put that up there, short window, give their point of view, it would have took so much crap off the feed, stick it into a story format, and probably allow for better thought leadership pieces or, more influential perspectives being pushed on the feed. So LinkedIn, I'm saying, I love LinkedIn. I think it's really good. And if people can let their guard down over not being such a stiff neck professional network and it actually being just a new form of social with a mix of business industry talk, it has a chance to do really, really well. But they probably have to rebuild their feed to do that.
Yeah.
Such a huge phase that brands overlook as well, because obviously depending on what it is, but there's so many people with buying power who are on LinkedIn actively every day. And if you're in B2B or even so, there's so many brands that I think would be great on LinkedIn. And even thinking about how they work with influencers on other platforms, like we're seeing a rise of people working with LinkedIn people with a bit of a following. And I think that will only grow because that's like it's like an untapped place still. It's still quite sacred.
Yeah.
But I feel like always the people who are like early to do things often reap such huge rewards.
Like we always reference Monzo and the work Rich has done over
Oh
there.
yeah,
like,
big fan.
Monzo,
the
The
like
bank.
what they do, like LinkedIn would probably be one of their strongest platforms. And again, a bank operating this space where finance, salaries, money, spending behavior, and they're doing it in such a brand-led or, entertaining way and relatable way. It's completely standing out from all the mundane shit that is happening on the feeds, and they do an incredible job.
Yeah, I think similarly about is it called Surreal? The cereal brand. They're really.
I don't know.
I think LinkedIn is probably their biggest, the biggest place that they have a following and engagement. And I mean, I don't know if this is how they got to it, but I'd imagine it's like a high protein cereal, which is only going to be interesting to a certain type of person, I think. But then I think those type of people probably fall into the people who I can think of that are like from maybe outside of London or outside of cities who go to like their little local gym perhaps, and they're thinking about eating slightly better. But then the people who are like, I need to make everything more efficient and what's the right word, like in their life where they try and increase everything, not efficient, optimize, and like this like, and I feel like there's a lot of optimizers on LinkedIn. So yeah, and I'd imagine that is who they are trying to speak to there. And I think if that was planned, genius. I'm sure it was.
Yes.
Shout out John from Surreal. Yeah.
Curious now to know, do you work a lot with B2B clients, or do they still sort of treat social as a bit frivolous and a bit...
No, there are plenty of brands who are really taking it forward. We've worked with one B2B, but yeah, it's certainly a space we'd love to prove the currency of the platform to do a better job. But there are brands that do a really good job. Indeed.com, when it comes to their recruitment software and recruitment tool, have been doing really interesting work over the last couple of years, particularly working with creators using platforms like LinkedIn and others, but also using the whole infrastructure of social to do really good work. So there are plenty, even like V.io, which is a video editing brand, how they use what Beth talked about earlier, marketing influencers on LinkedIn to talk about the product, but not just say, hey, buy the product, actually using the tool to edit the videos that they make and then be a partner who can advocate it by using the product. So there are a lot of them out there that are doing really interesting work and trying to be more like B2C brands. But again, I guess most people always say B2B is really B2C, and which is kind of true. But there are a lot of startups, I guess, are being braver in how they use it, and a lot of tech companies are being smart in how they're trying to deliver as well. So.
I think it's easier as well. I don't want to say it's easy, but for B2B brands, because so many of them are still very potentially stiff in how they think about talking to a business, which is just a person on the other side, that those brands who actually just do something just a little bit different are so far ahead, rather than in the B2C space, because everybody is trying to do something different and trying to stand out. Whereas often I think lots of B2B brands, especially stuff I see on LinkedIn in particular, is everybody's too scared to do anything, and everybody's like, no, we must be very serious. You can still be serious, you can still be a serious business, but you can make content that people are interested in and entertains. It doesn't have to be you doing a dance. There are ways to entertain and give information.
And just while we're on sort of business and LinkedIn, do you know, does it actually do anything if you put the link in the comments instead of in the post?
Well, I think just from my own trial and error, and lots of the stuff that we talk about is from trial and error too, because you can read so much, but unless you're literally in the platforms, you miss so much. So if you post on LinkedIn, and most people now don't put a link in the top part and put it in the comments, you'll notice that when you go to the comment section, you either have most relevant or most recent, and the link, it automatically goes to most relevant. Like everybody's underneath. what are we calling that? The comment section of a LinkedIn post goes to most relevant. So, and you literally don't see the link there. You have to click the drop down and switch it. So I think if they're doing that to hide comments, of course they don't want people to leave the platform. No social media wants people to leave the platform. That's why TikTok Shop has created this whole ecosystem inside of TikTok. So you don't need to go anywhere. That I'd imagine it wouldn't do as well.
No.
I don't have data. This is just trial and error.
Trial and error, same. Now, again, the feed in LinkedIn is a bit chaotic right now. It's either they're trying to rebuild it or restart it. I'm not sure because you're seeing content from 3 or 4 weeks ago and engagement has dropped dramatically and a lot of narrative on it. But I think the point is true. It's links in content means you're encouraging people to come off the platform. They need your attention so they can serve ads. So they're going to penalize you based on that.
Enshittification once again.
Yes, it is.
Finally, MediaCat isn't brilliant on social. We do our best, but we're not great. What advice would you give us or me as a brand?
How much, Beth?
You can take a mic with you.
Perfect, we will. We were looking earlier, weren't we? And I mean, the main thing that we saw was just the lack of video content and how if you are posting stills to Instagram, they get limited to only be shown to your followers. And also there's only a certain amount of people who are even going to scroll the feed to see them because most people are in the DMs. The people that aren't in the DMs are in stories and then they're in the feed. So the amount of people that will actually see that post will be incredibly low. Whereas if you create carousels and add music, it works the same as a reel. So it will get pushed out much further. So when you look on your back end, you'll see on reels and the carousels the amount of people who've seen it who follow you versus don't follow you. And if a piece of content does well, the following is always like 2%, and then everything comes from non-followers. It's exactly the same on TikTok as well. So if you're not doing video content, I think you'll just get so lost.
I was afraid you were going to say that. Well, on that bombshell, thank you ever so much, Michael and Beth, for coming chatting to MediaCat today. It's been fascinating, and I wish you all the best with Slice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you want to find out more, where does it go?
Oh, is it 3 W's?
I think it
dot slice-social.com.
See you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.